Hey everybody, I'm Joe, and we are continuing talking about this. This is the Marvel Multiverse role-playing game being put out by Marvel. We are going to spend today talking about a core mechanic of the game called focus. And normal disclaimer that I give at the beginning of these videos. As of recording, this game is in playtest and has had 3 rules updates. So if there are additional rules updates, or of course when the core rulebook comes out in June, I might need to do videos updating what I say here for the most recent information. So note where I'm coming from as of recording. But we are going to be talking about focus. And this is something that is becoming a major part of the game. It actually wasn't as predominant in the original playtest material, but its importance is actually being elevated in the rules errata. So let's get into it. By the way, as we get going, I know that I'm talking about a Marvel game while wearing a Batman shirt, but we're just going to have to live with the cognitive dissonance. So in order to really understand why focus is so important and it changing is so important, I want to do a little bit of an intro by talking about a different game. And that is this question. If you have played Dungeons & Dragons, what mechanically makes the rogue so different than other classes? You might give several answers to this question, but one that I think would be a reasonable answer is that the rogue does not have to deal with resource management. Resource management is actually the predominant game mechanic you are dealing with in most RPGs. How many arrows are left in your quiver? How many spell slots does the wizard have left? How many more Battlemaster maneuver die does your Battlemaster fighter have? How many more times can your paladin smite? You have resources to manage until the next long rest when you replenish resources. And balancing that and managing it over time is the actual mechanical part of the game. Rogues are different and treated differently and played differently because they don't have resource management. There's no limit to the number of times they can sneak attack other than once per round. There's no limit to the number of times they can do evasion, it just uses their reaction. And the Marvel Multiverse game was leaning heavily into a lack of resource management. All of the powers presented, from weather control to the healing factor to holographic illusion, had no resource management attached. You could just do them whenever you wanted. And while that might simulate the way we view superheroes in movies and in comics, it's actually not as good of gameplay. It means that we don't have to balance our actions and predict the future of a particular game or session. Focus, as it is being changed, attempts to alter that very nature of the game. So the only thing from the original playtest rulebook that is actually still useful in discussing focus is the description. The description says that focus is meant to represent your character's mental stamina and preparation for doing things in battle and during the course of an adventuring day. Everything else about focus has changed from that point. So you really can't reference the rulebook for any accurate information on focus. You've got to look at the rules errata. And here's what we know. Focus is 25 times your vigilance ability modifier. So if you have put 2 points into your vigilance score, you have 50 points of focus to spend. Please note that there's no way for a character to have fewer than 10 points. So even if you have a 0 or even a negative modifier in vigilance, you still have 10 points of focus. This includes any NPCs the narrator might build. Now, focus in the original material didn't do a whole lot, but we have seen in the rules updates that focus is going to be used to spend in order to fuel powers. We've already seen a little bit of this. One of the I think really key powers already presented in the playtest material is one I've talked about a few times before, and it's called Do This All Day, where you can spend a point of focus in order to heal 2 points of health. This is a really efficient healing capacity that is available at very low levels. But not a lot of other powers presented in the rulebook spent focus to fuel the power, and that meant we didn't have resource management. We are going to be seeing a lot more of powers that do cool things, but you have a tank that gets spent in order to fuel them. This is better gameplay, it's more interesting, and it means that you all of a sudden have to balance your vigilance score. That's also really good. So building a character in any RPG is all about making decisions. How much do I want of this? How much do I want of that? I'm willing to sacrifice this to get it. And the Marvel game really is no different. And there's two major aspects as to why. The first is different things in the game fuel different aspects of gameplay. Your agility score fuels your initiative roll. Your hit points are fueled by your resilience. And now your focus is being fueled by your vigilance. This means that all of these factors are important before we even get to which one of your stats fuels your attack. This is really crucial. This is key. And it's different than the way that Dungeons and Dragons works, where realistically, you have basically your dexterity as your god stat, where no matter what your character is, pumping more into dexterity is always good because it fuels your armor class. Now, fueling armor class is also different in this game because each type of attack attacks a different defense score, but that's a topic for a different video and something I really like in the game. Your vigilance is going to fuel your ability to do other cool stuff. Now, how does spending it work? We have two pieces of information about this from the rules errata. The first is that you can't spend more than 5 times your rank at any one time in focus. The next rule is that powers that have certain power rank requirements might be fueled by different amounts of focus points. So in other words, in order to do bigger and cooler stuff, you need to spend more of your fuel. And that makes a lot of sense. We got a handy little chart from one of the rules errata for this. The next thing that we learn is that you cannot willingly spend focus to go below 1 point because bad stuff happens in negative territory. So when I said that you can't look at the playtest rulebook for any other information about focus other than description, that was a lie to instill confidence. There's actually 2 more things, and those are conditions that are maintained through the rest of the rules errata. They are demoralized and shattered. Here's the way that they work. You cannot willingly spend focus to go to 0 or a negative focus value, because going into 0 or negative focus territory means that you are demoralized. This gives you trouble on every ability check and attack roll that you do. That's really bad. Your character becomes far less effective, and getting into that territory is a really scary position, but it's not as bad as being shattered. Shattered means that your focus value goes to a negative absolute value that's the same or greater than your max focus absolute value. So if you have 1 point of vigilance, that gives you 25 points of focus. If you get to 0 or negative, you are demoralized. If you hit negative 25 focus, you are shattered, and your character goes insane, making them effectively unplayable, and you roll a new character at that point. This makes sense because death in this game happens when you hit a negative health value that is equal to or greater than the absolute value of your max health. So the same thing happening with focus, which is your other fuel tank, is a nice bit of balance to it. Now, as I've said in other videos, how you're supposed to actually hit a negative focus value this low is still kind of an open question. So how does focus get attacked? That would be the only way that you could actually continue to drop in focus, right? Because you can't spend focus once you're in negative territory. It's against the rules. So something has to make focus go down. There are two ways at the moment that this can happen. The first is a power called Wisecracker, which attacks focus as opposed to health. At the moment, it is the only power in the game that directly attacks focus. I personally would love to build a villain for my game that I'm running that attacks focus, because I think a lot of characters would not build up a defense against that. It'd be really interesting to see that happen. That is a cool power, and there's nothing stopping a villain from continuing to attack focus when you are in negative territory. Nothing whatsoever. The second way that focus can continue to be depleted is with a fantastic damage roll. We learn in one of the rules errata that when a fantastic damage happens, a fantastic roll to hit happens, the character also takes damage to focus. Now, normally we think, well, you can't make a fantastic damage roll happen, so this is going to be a randomized byproduct. But of course, as we've discussed before, there is a power in the game that lets you do that. So in a previous video, I said that the single best power in the game is combat trickery. This used to be a trait that was changed to a power in a recent rules errata, and this is a power that once per battle allows you to, after making an attack roll, change the Marvel die to a 1 and bypass any other trouble or other restrictions. Basically once per battle, letting you decide you have a fantastic success. And this pairs with any other ability that is going to go alongside a fantastic success. One thing I did not mention in that video is that that will also deplete the focus of whoever you are attacking. So if you wanted to build a character that attacked focus, you would want to take combat trickery and Wisecracker, and you'd be able to demoralize your enemies. Really cool, really powerful. So focus is going to be a thing that is going to change a lot as the game develops, and it's going to be the thing that alters powers more than anything else going forward. You can expect the really powerful stuff in the game to require an expenditure of focus in order to fuel it. And then you're going to have to make very profound decisions about fueling an attack or preserving focus so that you have more defenses against being demoralized. I think that's going to make the game far more tactical and far more interesting. All right, so this has been a look at focus. Thank you for joining me today. As always, YouTube is literally made out of buttons. They're all over here. Everybody on YouTube says to press them, so they help. There you go. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.